You've just landed inside Launch Street, the innovation podcast, where we interview top innovators out there shaking things up so you can innovate and differentiate and get further, faster in this crazy, cluttered world. And now, innovation thought leader and your Superfly host, Tamara Kleinberg.
What's up, Launch Street? Tamara here, your host, and that person with the font so big on their text on their iPhone that people 10 rows behind me on the plane can read it. Because my eyes are going bad, but that's a conversation for another time. What I want to do today is set up this incredible 3-part series that I just completed with Anthony Lambatos. You've probably heard me mention him before for a myriad of reasons. Here's the thing with Anthony. He's president of one of the most successful catering companies out here in Colorado, Footers Catering. On top of that, because of the success that he has had in growing and building this business, he gets asked to speak a lot about how to build a company, how to build a culture so strong that people want to work for you. And the third layer to that is he is actually one of only 2 people that we've accepted to certify in the Innovation Quotient Edge assessment. That's our assessment that tells you how you innovate so that you can perform at your peak and innovate on demand and have a stronger voice. A lot of you out there have taken it and discovered your innovator archetypes. Anthony's one of, like I said, only 2 that we've accepted to partner with and to really dig deep into it. And he is crushing it out there. So I did a 3-part interview with him. And in this one, part 1, we really dug in to what it takes to build a culture of innovation with your teams, your people, and across the company that doesn't require you to be there to constantly be that cheerleader of innovation. What Anthony's done that I'm so impressed with is he's really taken this concept of innovation, this, high level idea, and he's made it tangible and he's made it real and he's made it something that happens every single day. So in this first part, you're going to hear how to do that so that you, when the podcast is done, can actually go do that in your organizations and with your teams. All right, let's do this. Anthony, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. Thanks for stopping by Launch Street.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
I mean, you're always kind of around, so it's not like I don't know you. But let's let the listeners get to know you a little bit because we're kind of doing this in a 3-part series. So tell us something that people would be surprised to learn about you.
Oh, that's a great question. I think that one of the things that defines me outside of work is my love of sports, and I actually have a separate bucket list that is all related to sports and sporting events that I want to go to at some point in my life. And my wife always gives me a hard time. She says I keep adding to it. But in reality, I just don't think she ever knew how long it originally was.
You were just hiding it until you were deep into the marriage. So I have to ask, though, first of all, is it all sports or do you have favorites? And then the most important question, is there a pinnacle event that it was just to go to this event would be the most amazing thing in your world?
Yeah. So, yes, I do have my favorites. I mean, I love football, and that's probably my top sport that I enjoy watching and being at. And so, from one that I've already been at, going to the Super Bowl and seeing the Broncos win in '98 and '99 was just awesome. That was that to not just go to an event that you really want to see, but to have your team there and have them actually win, just made it that much sweeter.
Wow,
so that was probably
awesome.
My favorite. In terms of what's on the list, I really want to go to a Final Four. I also love basketball. So NCAA Final Four, to see the 3 games in 3 days and kind of the championship crown there, that would be pretty cool as well.
You crack me up. It's so funny. Like the specificity behind it is so great. I agree with you, though. There's
random stuff in there too, though, Tamara. That's like the fun thing, like the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
That's I think on my list of something that I would love to go see.
That would be cool. Honestly, I want to do it just so I can go buy a hat.
Yes.
I would go to anything where you have to dress up and fit the part. To me, that is just so much. I mean, why would you pass that up?
Exactly.
So if you're out there listening, Anthony and I will take tickets to the Derby. Just anyone out there who has extra tickets. We're in.
Yep.
So here's what I wanted to talk to you about on this first podcast was about innovation and lip service. And, I've known you for quite a while now, and I've seen you lead your company, build your company, and really foster an incredible culture where people really want to work and they stay and they love their job. And it shows in your customer service. It shows in your product and services. It shows in everything. But, I was keynoting a couple weeks ago and I got off stage and a woman came up to me and she said, Tamara, I have a challenge. Here's the thing. I totally believe in innovation as part of your culture, thinking differently, not just, new technology, new products, but truly solving problems in new ways, finding opportunities. She said, but I have no idea how to make it anything more than that statement that's on the wall. And everybody bought into it and we all cheered on every time we passed by it as we go to the bathroom. But we don't really know what to do about it. And one of the things that I think that you are absolutely brilliant at is actually taking that concept and translating it into real world, into a part of your actual company. So I would love to hear you talk a little bit about how you do that. Not just the why, but the how you do that too.
Sure. Thank you. I certainly appreciate that. Yeah, there's so much here. That's a really loaded question. So I'm excited that we get to dive into it quite a bit. I think it originally stemmed, it wasn't as intentional as it is now for us. We've talked at length that our whole goal when my wife April and I bought the business from my dad was to create a great place to work.
Right.
And how do we do something that's fun and enjoyable? And over time, I think we realized more and more how much the satisfaction in what you do and doing cool things impacts somebody's excitement about their job and what they want to do. That it's way beyond just the ping pong table and some of the perks that you can offer and what are the benefits of working here. But when people are doing meaningful work and doing things that they're proud of, it really goes a long way. And so the middle part of our mission statement is make it better every day. And that originally kind of started from, we've been in business since 1981 for a number of years. But we don't want to do the same thing that we've just been doing for 30 plus years. We want to be different. We want to be unique. We want to continue doing cool things. And I think everybody has that passion here. And taking it to that next level of like, how do you unleash that? How do you make sure that it's happened? Is something that I think we struggled with a little bit, and now we've gotten into our zone of really understanding it. So, when we identify something that needs to be done or fixed, we utilize task forces that will get together, and most of them are voluntary. So it's, like we have our building task force. We've been in our location for 6 years. And one of our big things is that we don't want anyone to ever feel like they've been here for 6 years or feel like the building is 6 years old. We want it to always feel almost brand new. And so there's a handful of people from different departments. So we get really different perspectives, somebody from the kitchen, somebody from our coordination team, somebody from the service department that all want to work on this, and they get together and they'll identify different parts of the building and say, okay, how do we freshen this up? How do we do something new? How do we do something that's going to be better utilized or come off better with clients? And they'll go through that process, and it's kind of fun to watch them get together and be innovative with what we have here at the building.
Can I ask you a question on that really quickly, though?
Yeah.
Because I love it. And I've seen some of the task force. So I've talked to the people and kind of heard their perspective on it. And it's one of the first times I've heard any employee anywhere say, I love having some extra work to do. Like something, right? I mean, That's really what you're asking them when you're doing a committee or a task force. Yep. So it kind of, right? I mean, it's, oh, great. Yes. I'd love to take one more thing on. But your team actually really is excited about it. So how do you make that shift from, all right, I've set up committees or cohorts of people and we still get incremental thinking, and even bigger, move it beyond like, great, one more meeting?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think having it be voluntary is huge. That's one of those things that I think we have people here that genuinely care about some of these things, and sometimes the task forces they do see the bigger picture of how it will potentially impact their job, and it may be more tailored to a process or a system that we're improving. But overall, I think people appreciate getting out of their day-to-day activities and doing something different. We don't have any interior designers here, but we have people with good taste, and so they like to be able to get together and, how could we decorate this and what could we do here? They spend a ton of time. We talk a lot about the impression of a bathroom anywhere you go, and especially.
That's so true.
Especially for women. It's such a huge deal. And so they put a ton of effort into making the women's restroom a really awesome experience.
Wow.
And something that feels really good. And so I think it's something that people genuinely care about when they volunteer their time to say, yeah, I want to be part of this. But also, like I said, gets them away from their day-to-day tasks and maybe challenges them to work on something new. We have a video task force that works on our year in review video. And those are people that are just excited to celebrate and document what we did the year before and put that video together. So it really is a wide range of things, but I think people take a lot of pride in something unique. But you're right, we're asking them to basically do some extra work.
Well, that's why I was so impressed by it when they were saying, I'm on this committee and that committee, and I can't remember the number of conversations I've had, and I've been in those situations where people say, I know you're really good at this, so would you mind helping out? And I'm like, oh, really? Like, that's a whole nother hour I'm gonna be at work. But they are excited. How do you pick what is worthy to kind of bring some innovation to like that? And I know you do innovation, everything you do, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But for these committees that are taking on projects, how do you decide what's worthy enough to be a project?
Yeah, it really is driven a lot by our strategic plan that we put together. We also have, there's 8 director level people within our organization, and we meet every other week. So a lot of it is driven by them. But we also have ideas that come from our team. At the end of the day, though, it's really those directors that are saying, yes, we're going to put resources towards this and making it happen. And improving this process, or we're going to put a group together that's going to fix this or make this even better. This year was kind of cool because we had each of our directors take ownership of one of the strategic initiatives, and all the strategic initiatives were really innovation areas, if you will. They were not necessarily related to a specific event here or there. It was kind of big picture. These are the 8 areas we really want to work on. And each director isn't necessarily responsible for doing all the work to get that done, but making sure that work happens.
They're accountable for making sure that work follows through.
Exactly. Putting the group together. Is it a short-term project? Because that's one of the things we learned with the task forces is, we had created a couple task forces that were ongoing, and really they didn't need to be ongoing. Once they finished a task or made, something better, it was time to disband that task force and let those people, go back to what they were doing. And if they want to jump in on something else, that comes up later on, that's great, as opposed to always being tied to that same task force. So we have a couple of ongoing, but for the most part, our task forces now are very specific with a end goal in mind of here's what we want to accomplish. And here's how we're going to do that. And so I think that's helped with our people's willingness to commit as well. They know, hey, once we finish this project, my responsibility there is kind of done.
Well, I think too, Anthony, what you're saying is really important because it's finite. So it doesn't drag on. So you keep the excitement level higher too, because hopefully you don't hit that point of feeling like this is a burden because you finished it. Specific is also clearly important too. But also I think you get to the reward phase or the completion phase where you get to showcase what you've done versus just as something that you never see the end result of, which I think sometimes happens in innovation efforts of any kind, is you just never get to the result. So I'm curious, with your team, how do you reward people's efforts towards, you said making it better every day is one of your values, towards these innovation that they complete on these projects, all the ways that they do it. How do you reward? It's kind of some layers to this. So I'll just say it all at once and you kind of guide me where you want to go. But the effort that goes into it, the success that they achieve, but also the mistakes and the failures along the way, because that part in particular, I think, is easier said than done for most people, and why it becomes lip service because they don't know how to deal with that.
Yes, I was you talk all the time about, the risk of only rewarding the outcomes.
Yeah.
And I was just writing a little bit about that to our team. I think the first thing starts with our recognition and our Jimmy Buck program. Jimmy is my dad, so it pays tribute to him.
Bucks like dollars, right?
Yes, exactly. When our team does things that embody our core values, they can submit requests for each other to get Jimmy Bucks. And so those Jimmy Bucks are given a lot of the times, during the process. So, Jimmy Bucks could be given for, teamwork. And these 3 people jumped on this task force. Great. So, now we've rewarded them and acknowledged them for putting in some extra effort just by being part of it. And then there's other things along the way that those Jimmy Bucks can be given for that aren't just related to was the project a success or not. It might be I was struggling with this and, Tamara came in and helped give me this great idea that sparked how we can move forward. So, again, we're not talking about the end result. We're talking about the process, and we encourage our team to give those Jimmy Bucks throughout that process.
That is so cool. I just have to say, because you've heard me speak a few times, I think it's so important to reward the behaviors, not the outcomes, and the behaviors that you want more of, like stepping up, like trying something new, like, disagreeing in a meeting and having a different idea, whatever it is. It's when you only focus on the outcomes that innovation tends to fail, because as you and I know, it's either the failure shelf or cake on Friday. And that doesn't make you want to try. So I'm so glad that you said that, because I think for listeners out there, that part is key. So, okay, go on. I just wanted to highlight that. Yes,
no, I completely agree. The other thing that we have embraced here is it's got a couple different names, but the 80% solution is something that opened our eyes to a lot more progress. So we had a project that we tried to implement. It was basically the automation of what we call our pack lists. So all the equipment that needs to get on a truck for an event, our event coordinators would have to manually put that together and note how many forks they need and how many plates they were going to need and how many of these ovens, how many tables, everything manually. They had to do that. And so we were working through the process of trying to automate that. And we failed basically the first 3 times that we tried. And the last time we said, okay, this is the last time we're going to try. And if we don't get it, then we're never coming back to this project again.
Wait, just stop for 1 second. Anthony, when you say you failed 3 times, what does that mean? What does that actually look like?
So it just means that we couldn't figure it out. We couldn't figure out how to automate the pack list. The tools were kind of there, but we couldn't ever get it to work to the extent that it was going to be something that we could utilize within our business. And we have the software that we had access to. And the 4th time we're going through and we're hitting some of these same hurdles that we've had in the past. And somebody says, why are we looking for a perfect solution? What if we just got to 80%? And it was like the light went on, and this 10 to 20% that we had spent so much time focusing on and really had prevented us from getting there the first time was such a problem, because we were so obsessed with it had to be perfect and it had to be exactly
so powerful
how it was. And so once we disregarded that and said, it's okay, and if we just get 80% of the way there, that's going to be a lot better than what we had previously. We probably, it took us 2 weeks after that to get it all done. It was like, yeah, that was what we needed. And so now we really look at that with anything we take on, is it doesn't have to be a perfect solution. If we're making something better, which the middle part of our mission statement, make it better every day. We have our acronym now, MIBE, for that. So you hear a lot of people talk about MIBing and And that's a great MIBE, and we have MIBE Tribe.
I love it.
Is our internal kind of branding among our team, which is kind of fun. But that whole we really believe in that, is make it better. Just, even if it's only 80%, it's not an ideal solution. It's 80% better than what we had before. We've made some huge strides to that. And what's amazing is what happens is once you get that 80%, all of a sudden, in 2 weeks, maybe you get 82%. And then, 4 more weeks, maybe you get to 84%. And over time, we've basically got that pack list dialed in to 99% accuracy. And it takes the coordinators 1/4 of the time it used to take them. But because we were okay with that 80% solution, it's given us the next, year to refine the rest of it and keep making it better. So those are.
I hope you talk about that in your keynotes, by the way, which we'll talk about in another podcast coming up. But the whole concept of just the 80% solution across the board is so good.
Yes,
it's so good. And I just have a question for you on it. What do you think causes us to just focus so heavily on that 10 to 20%? Because as you were saying that, I was just thinking, God, it's like hitting a brick wall you don't need to hit, but you do it over and over again, even though you spent all this time, before. My analogy is not working. It started in my head and now it's gone off the rails. But you know what I'm trying to say? 80% is far. Yet that 10 to 20%, it is exhausting. Why do we do that?
Because it's glaring. It's very clear that part is not working, and everybody can see that part is not working. Another thing we talk about is the idea of the J curve, and this idea that productivity doesn't just go in a straight line. So if you're it's kind of hard to do without a visual aid, but if you can imagine an axis where you have time on a horizontal axis and you have productivity on a vertical axis, and you're at this one point and you want to be more productive in the next, whatever time frame. So traditionally somebody would think, we just draw a straight line from where we are up towards where we want to be. And in reality, when you take on and change a process, or for us, you make something better, a lot of times it doesn't go straight up. Your productivity dips for a period of time before you get this exponential shot up to where that new productivity level is. And the reason for that is because you have to retrain yourself on how you're doing something. Or, in our case with these pack lists, our coordinators actually for a time period had to do both the old way and the new way. So they had done the work, but we had to do that to make sure that we were on the same page and that it was working, and that they were accurate. And so being very forthcoming with our team about that was huge, to say, hey, look, we know for the next 2 weeks, next month,
this is going to suck.
It's going to be really difficult. Yeah. It's going to be hard for us, and it's going to take more time. But I promise you, once we get through this, we can now all of a sudden it's going to be much better. And I promise it'll be that way. And if you don't do that, it's a great opportunity for all the naysayers to jump on board, and they
yes, it is.
And they will point out that 20% and say, I told you this wouldn't work. This is a bad idea. We just need to go back to our old way of doing it. I don't know why we're even trying. This is stupid. And they really, if there's too many of them, it'll stop the process right there. Before you even give yourself a chance to get to that new level of productivity. And you probably will just go back to wherever your old level of productivity was, if you even can get back to there. But that's, I think, at the root of why it's so glaring, because it makes it very hard to get everybody on that same vision of where you're going and how it's going to be better in the long run, even though it's not 100% accurate right now.
Do you think getting through that J curve, because I talk a lot about something similar about it gets harder before it gets easier with innovation, because I think there's excitement, like everybody's heightened excitement about, oh my God, we're going to do things differently, we're going to improve, we're going to innovate, and then the rubber meets the road and it gets hard and people get really discouraged. And then if you can get through that, you get to that curve that you were talking about. Do you think that a big part of that is setting expectations in the front end? Like, did you do that with your team, and did that help them? I think kind of the emotional and the mental side of it.
Definitely. With anything we do, over communicating. What are we doing? Why is this important? Why are we doing it? What are the inconveniences going to be over the next, period of time? What's our expectation on how quickly we can get this done? Sometimes we have a time frame, sometimes we don't. But if we don't, then we may say, look, the faster we all work together to get this done, then the quicker we're going to be at this new productivity level, which is going to give everybody more time to do these other things.
Right. Oh, so fascinating. I want to talk a little bit about, actually, before I go on, let me just say for listeners, that J curve that Anthony's talking about, I think that's a huge revelation of how you have to think about experimentation and trying new things. And actually, let me go back before I go on, because we needed to talk a little more about failure and success and reward. So I wanted you to finish that up. I have like 8 questions on my notepad, so I'm going to refrain and let's finish this thought, and then we'll keep going.
I think that's the beauty of the task forces. They tend to be a pretty safe space to be able to throw out bad ideas, if you will. And we want to encourage those bad ideas, because those bad ideas often are what spark somebody else's good idea. And so really challenging people to be open with what their thought process is. And, there's a great exercise that I know you share, the look for ways, where it just challenges you to ask some different questions. And one of the questions is like, what is the opposite that you could do in this situation? And I was doing a presentation, and I actually highlighted Snowbird ski area. They had a 2-page spread in Skiing Magazine, and it was a beautiful picture of the resort. And on one page, it had a 1-star review that was that was posted somewhere online, and it was something about, I've heard this place is difficult, but this is ridiculous. Tree wells and something else, and he was very upset,
bashing them basically,
the ski area, and just thought it was way too hard. And so, again, thinking in that opposite, most companies would never even dream of publishing a 1-star review in
right.
in an
No, you try to get those stuff removed.
Yes, exactly. Here they went and highlighted it and utilized it to their advantage of, hey, this is what we want to kind of put out there, because this is who we are. So I think when you give yourself permission to just throw anything and everything out there, you can then start to build on it. Where when we have our preconceived notions of what won't work or what's a bad idea, we're starting with a much smaller pool of ideas. And I think we're limiting what our innovation could potentially be.
And I'm sure this is kind of where you guys go with it. I feel like if someone comes up with an idea that, call it bad, not right, wrong, whatever, right? It's not the idea that's going to move forward for a lot of reasons. When you take a second and go, well, why did you come up with that idea? What were you trying to solve with that idea? That's when you start to understand what those alternate possibilities could be.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
As opposed to just judging it and being like, nope, okay, all of that is bad, now let's move on. Oftentimes, what they're trying to accomplish is what's going to get you there.
Yeah.
So I want to talk, in our kind of the time that we have left, I want to talk about your Make It Better Every Day, because I think that's really powerful, but for a couple of reasons. So one of the things that I'd say that your company, that Footers, does really well in the catering world is you come out of the gate different. You're not like every other catering company, don't you think? Is that fair to say? Like,
we like to think so.
Yeah,
yes.
You're not. And I've seen you guys in action. Like, you're not. Yet, on one hand, you deliver the service you need to deliver, right? Great food, good service, you're on time. The catering, I was actually parallel with one of your trucks for like 30 minutes the other day on the highway. I was laughing. So I was like, oh, hey, look, it's Footers. But you do what you need to do, right? Like, that's baseline, of course, and you do it very well. But a lot of catering companies have good food and nice people.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
You guys do it differently, but at the base of that is this Make It Better Every Day. And the reason I want to talk about that is I think when you're out in the marketplace, just being better than your competition is not enough. Yet on the flip side, those little incremental improvements you do every day in your work is what's going to get you to different. So hopefully I'm making sense, because I'm trying to balance better and different. And I want to hear you talk about how that's impacted your company, your culture, your results, because I think it has.
Yeah, I think, one of the misconceptions, again, with innovation is that it's this big bang thing that somebody's tinkering in a, dark room and all of a sudden, boom, they've got,
with a crazy hat on.
Yeah. And I mean, Thomas Edison's a great example of that. I think there were 100 people that invented the light bulb before him. And he was just the one that first invented I think it was the first commercially viable light bulb. So he didn't invent the idea of it or what it was. He just took what everybody else was doing and made it better.
Yeah, kind of like Steve Jobs too.
Yeah, but certain people get all the credit for it because they were the ones that pushed it forward. And I think people have this idea that he was the one that just miraculously came up with the whole thing. And so I think that is really what is key to innovation, is if we just take those small incremental improvements and keep making it better and keep taking steps toward it, pretty soon you look back and you're like, holy cow, we've really come a long way. And it's the other piece that I love about it is it's tangible and it's manageable. I can see if I do this, it might not make a huge difference, but it's realistic for me to make that step. Where when you say, hey, we're going to completely reinvent how we do this, and it's going to look, we don't even know what it's going to look like because it's so far out there, but it's just going to be awesome. And it's like, that's hard for people to comprehend and see what they need to do. Where if all of a sudden we're just painting these next 5 steps of if we go in this direction, that's going to make it a lot better. All of a sudden you get to that new point and you may shift a little bit. You may keep going in that same direction, but you keep advancing towards something. And it really is more about that journey and not so much about the end result.
Well, it goes back to kind of behavior versus outcomes too. It's kind of in line with that. And I also think what you were talking about of if you give them the 5 steps or just tell them like, let's make this a little bit better. What ends up happening, I think, in the other way of like, oh my God, we're going to disrupt and reinvent and reimagine. Like that's all fun for people like us, I think, who are wild dreamers. But I'd say, but that's not everybody because we all innovate differently, which we will talk about, of course, in the next podcast. But I think it actually shuts down innovation because now you're asking people to really just take everything they know, throw it away, and come up with something drastically different. And I think that's scary and hard to do. And, this is why the whole out of the box kind of drives me crazy. I like to think of rearranging the box that you have because sometimes you just got to shift things around. But it's also, I think, mentally a lot easier for me to go, all right, I'm going to just improve this a little bit than, oh my God, you want me to what? I got to be like Steve Jobs. Like that's not happening.
Yeah, I got to come up with a brand new food item.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like that's hard for people to wrap their heads around. So if I were to ask your team what they think is kind of the secret sauce to your culture and to being so innovative and, so successful in the marketplace, what do you think they'd say?
I think that we genuinely care about the people we have working here. And I think overall the people that work here are very committed to doing a great job. Yeah. And people feed off of that and look forward to working with one another because of that. So I think those are a couple of the things, closely aligned with that is we really want to try to give our team opportunities to grow and improve. And so we spend a lot of time talking about that and trying to provide resources for them, which kind of parlays back into the if you feel good about what you're doing and you're doing a good job and the people around you are doing awesome work, it inspires you to continue to work with a positive attitude and be excited about what you're doing.
The other thing I want to add to that, Anthony, that you kind of referenced in the Jimmy Bucks, but we didn't really get into it, the reward system, just for people listening, was anyone can submit that, right? So it's kind of an even playing field. It's not just that only the directors or, only the people who have important job titles can decide who gets rewarded, not. It's actually the whole company, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there's something in that even playing field that makes it a very different reward system.
Right.
Oh my gosh, Anthony, this has been so good. I could keep talking about this subject, but we got to get on to the next. So for those listening out there, I hope you took some notes because there's some good stuff in making innovation tangible in here. I mean, truth, right? Isn't he incredible? So many real and tangible things that you can do right now to build that culture of innovation. So here's what I want you to do, Launch Streeters. I want you to pick one thing that Anthony talked about, just one. Maybe it's some type of reward system, kind of like his Jimmy Bucks, or maybe it's some type of committee program like he has. Whatever it is that resonated with you, I want you to pick one thing and I want you to go implement it right now. And then after about 30 days of it, I want you to email us and let us know how it's going. You can commit to that, right? Just one thing. That's all it takes to shift the culture, which, by the way, as you can probably tell in the interview, and I think we talked about a little bit in this one as well, we go even deeper actually in part 2 and 3. We go way deeper into his innovator archetype, how he innovates, about how he uses it with his team, as well as how he's actually getting it out into the world of catering and why they've gotten so much value out of understanding their innovator archetypes and how it's helping them deal with the challenges that they face in the catering world, which, as you'll hear, I think is probably very similar to the challenges you're dealing with as well. But that's in the future. For now, Anthony and his Tweaker Collaborative, as you can probably tell, is all about building and adjusting and editing and growing. So you're going to do the same thing, and you're going to do it by picking one action point, one thing that you can do with your team, and then let us know how it goes. All right, Tamara, out.
Thanks for hanging out with us inside Launch Street. When you're ready to take your game to the next level, join the thousands of others that are upping their innovation edge on GoToLaunchStreet.com, the top online education resource and community platform for innovators looking to use innovation to get measurable results. GoToLaunchStreet.com.